Welcome, good evening, Erev Tov. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Eilat Harel. I am the Director of the Community Impact and Engagement at the Minneapolis Jewish Federation. And I'm wearing the Israel Center hat tonight. One of the programs that we have through Federation is called Partnership Together, and we are starting our 5th year now. And Partnership Together is a program that brings together the communities both on the local level, on the Israeli side, and the two communities together. And with this partnership, through this partnership, we're able to create new relationships, new friendships, provide foundation for really interesting conversations about the Jews in the diaspora and the Jews in Israel, and to kind of build bridges between the different gaps that happen every now and then. The Minneapolis partnership is Rehovot, and Rehovot is known as a city of agriculture, culture, and science. And that's something that we felt that reflects this community as well. And for this reason, the P2G, this partnership program is called Judaism, Art, and Science Interwoven. So that's an interesting name. This Re-Art program, and we are the second community that's doing this. So this is a fairly new program in the partnership world in general. The Re-Art program in our case consists of 6 artists, 3 who are local and 3 who are from Rehovot. And each artist, if you already took a look in the exhibit, and if not, you'll see afterwards, each artist created his or her own original piece and then took the artwork from another artist, the 5 other artists, and re-arted it into their own interpretation. Clear? Sounds confusing? The artists were confused in the beginning too. We worked together step by step, and they were able, through that confusion, to understand and to create a really nice project that created nice artwork that you will see in the exhibit, and also a very interesting conversation that took place about Judaism, Jewish identity, their own personal lives around Jewish, Israel diaspora, and all this through the angle of art, which was a really interesting way to have this kind of conversation. Before we start, I saw her, but I don't see her here. I want to thank Meryl Page. If she's not here, then she's maybe in the gallery. Meryl Page worked really hard. She provided the artists the material to give them inspiration for their artwork. I'll see her after. And there's Meryl. I'm thanking you for the curriculum that you provided for the artists. Thank you for being able to come tonight. I want to thank the artists who were willing to take this leap and work with this new project and let us enjoy their beautiful artwork and be a part of their own conversations. We had artists from Rehovot here last May, and in November our artists are going over to Rehovot, and so that will be the final piece of the exchange. And finally, I also want to thank Robin, Ewind and Jonathan for being wonderful collaborators and partners and being able to put this project together. And Susan, who you will see facilitating this evening, this panel discussion. And Susan is also an alum from last year's art exchange that we had through partnership, and is also the creator, developer, maintainer of our website that she'll give you the information afterwards. You can see all the artwork on the website that we have with all the information. So we will start first with, because you don't see 3 extra chairs because the artists from Israel are not here. They sent in a video of their responses of the questions that we asked both them and our local artists. So you will hear our artists respond to those questions, but first we'll play a video from the Israeli artists, and then Susan and the artists will go up to the stage, and then we'll take it from there. So thank you everyone for coming. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Pazita Sulin. I'm a photographer specializing in culinary and portrait photography. I do a lot of professional food production for chef, restaurant, and business in the food sector. Visual concept that includes mostly stills, but sometimes short videos, and of course food styling before shooting. In addition, I do a lot of portrait, mostly for business, corporate portrait. Commercially, I photograph food and people. For my soul, I like to take my camera anywhere to take photos of great landscape and beautiful nature. This was an annual creative process. The project, each artist has to make one original work, and the other artist has to give the original work their interpretation. At the end, you get 36 pieces, which will be presented in a show also in the United States at Minnesota and also in Israel at Rehovot. The project was very special. My day-to-day is about commercial photography. This process was all about art, make me create each time and each work from scratch a new different thing.
Hello everyone, my name is Ronnie. I'm a video artist from Rehovot. I finished school 2 years ago from Bezalel Art Academy in Jerusalem. After that, I went for a big trip in India, and when I came back, I started working on this project, the Re-Art project. I really enjoyed the process of the Re-Art because it felt very different for me to work with other people on the same work. I enjoyed to see what other people made from my work, and I enjoyed bringing myself into their works.
Hello everyone, my name is Anat Friedman and I'm a mixed media artist and a digital art therapist who works with people with disabilities with a variety of art tools. I like to combine plastic art tools with digital tools. So for me, the Re-Art is a great way also to bring myself and my tools and to connect with people in a variety of ways. The Re-Art process helped me to open up, to see other opportunities, and to connect with people in a variety of ways. I feel it's fascinating to see the deep conversation that we can have through one Re-Art, and I hope you all enjoy it. Thank you.
My first work on Let There Be Light. I thought a lot about what could be right for this project. There are many beautiful things to take photos of in Israel. Israel is beautiful. For this project, it felt right to take something close to home, to Rehovot. I chose the Weizmann Institute for Science Studies in Rehovot. The building of study of science is coated with mirror and full with greenery that reflects in the mirror. I took a lot of pictures there, daytime and also in total darkness at night with long exposure, which I really loved. I chose to use the limited picture. The first work was in January 2019. So with the hope of a year full of light, I chose to use the limited picture. The connection to Judaism would be from Genesis, Let There Be Light, creation of light. I hope you liked it.
One of the works that I really enjoyed making was the Re-Art that I made for Kati's work. When I first saw the work of Kati's, I felt like it's a very serious subject and I wasn't sure how I'm going to make something about it. But when I started working, I saw that I bring something optimistic to the work, and in the end I really enjoyed the result.
I will speak about my artwork, Hamavdil. We can all fill our cup with meaning and values. In this artwork, I sculptured a cup and filled it in with variety of art materials. The cup, for me, symbolizes the holiness and the ordinary of life, and the way they can be separated, but also can be connected. The Hamavdil is part of the Havdalah that we say in the end of Shabbat, when we take the cup and we fill it with wine. And it symbolizes the separation between Shabbat, the holiday, and the ordinary days. But it's also the connection, the moment that the ordinary and the holy connect with each other. I believe that in many things in life, the point that is separating us, it's also the point that makes us connected. And the differences are also the place where we can have a dialogue. I try to do this cup and fill it in with at least 50 examples of this artwork, and I'll show you some of the first process that I had in mind, because I believe that process is part of our journey in life, and it's not only important what the result is, it's a process, and filling our life with holiness and ordinary things are a journey for all life. As a digital art therapist, I try all the time to find the holiness in each step of the patients that I work with and to find the sparkle in each thing of them. Thank you.
This whole process, I've met wonderful people, Israeli artists, American artists, and of course the guys from the Jewish agency which accompanied the whole process. We've made connection talking about art and about life through text, email, Zoom phone calls, meeting, and eventually going to Minnesota, to the US. In the US, we have met, of course, the artists, but also a lot of people, elderly people, children, people of special need. We made terrific art with them together. The connection opened me to know a lot of people that I didn't know before. In the artistic sense, this whole project was wonderful. Made me get out of my box, get out of commercial and do more artistic work and create from scratch in each work again and again. It was lovely, thank you.
Being part of this project made me feel more connected to the Jewish community in America, and especially it made me know the Jewish community in Minnesota. I think most people in Israel really care and appreciate the Jewish in America and the communities, but we don't really have the opportunity to know each other in a direct way. So I really appreciate the opportunity to know the Jewish community in Minnesota and to be part of this project.
Looking at the original artworks together with the re-art feels to me like the expression, the whole is bigger than the sums of its parts. For my original work, I definitely feel that the help of the re-art works made my idea bigger, stronger, and with more support. And I really enjoyed looking at the different perspectives that all the artists gave to it. It's interesting to see how the same idea looks different at every artwork. And it's very clear when we see visually the artworks and the content in the text. I feel very connected to Kathy, to Linda, and to David after coming to Minnesota and working with them and doing all the artworks together. And thank you very much for it.
Okay, now I've got it. Well, you've heard half of the artists, and now you're going to hear a little bit from the artists of Minnesota. And we thought we would start with the same questions, which are, tell us a little bit about the re-art process and what it was like for you. Share one of the works you created for this project, and how has this experience impacted your art and the connection to your sister city artists. So, and you've all had a little chance to think about this. So I'm thinking, why don't we start at the end and work our way through? So David?
Great, thank you. My name is David Sherman. I was the lone male, or am the lone male in this group. So I don't know what that means, but I am. So thank you all for coming tonight and for coming to see our work and our project. Yes, I have a fan. Hi, Aiden. Okay, Jonathan, we'll start with the first slide. And I thought to go through the process, I'm going to speak briefly about my original piece and two of the re-arts. And I approached each one differently. So this is my first piece, which I call Chonein Hada'at, or the Granter of Insight. And what I did is, well, first of all, I really loved the project that there was this topic that had no real explanation, but that we were charged with illustrating in our own medium and in photography. So I chose to create a piece which described my feeling of how those three things came together. My Jewish thought, my artistic thought, and scientific thought. And what I did is had a model and asked a model to come in and asked a makeup artist to draw on her the bracha chonen hada'at, which is from the morning service. It's a prayer which basically is the first prayer of one of the central sections, the Amidah, the silent devotion, which before we get into the whole litany of requests that we ask God for, the first thing we do is we ask for understanding and knowledge. And the bracha ends with Baruch Atah Hashem, Chonen HaDa'at. Thank you, God, the grantor of insight. And basically what I'm saying here is that God really is the source of knowledge. Knowledge is the source of science. Therefore, the three dot, therefore, in a scientific thought, science is godly, science is from God. And and my belief then is that we are, God challenges us to use our mind and our science for good. The image I shot to be very unearthly, ethereal, this idea of creation, of God being the source of creation, the source of knowledge. This slide, just as a reference, is Roni's contribution, and as she spoke in the video, she spoke, well, I don't know, her write-up, she speaks about agriculture and the connection to the science in Israel, to agriculture and the creation of drip technology. Roni's piece was perhaps the most abstract of all the pieces that were submitted, so it was a challenge to try to figure it out. The chord that it struck in me was her connection to agriculture and her connection to the science of agriculture. And it hearkened me back to my family's heritage, to our being rooted, I guess, in agriculture. This is a picture from a farm that my grandfather purchased in the early 1960s in O'Neill, Nebraska, which is a small community in north central Nebraska. It's very barren land. Everything was very manual. The water was taken out by tractor. The feed was taken out by tractor. This connection of Roni's to agriculture brought me back to here. What I did then is, and then this was one of the key learning pieces for me in the project, was the use of Photoshop tools. And what I did is I composited my image with Roni's image, and I turned her tree and roots, perhaps, and the drip agriculture, or the drip technology, into a thunderstorm, providing water and nourishment for the barren soil that it was. So there were two things here that I connected with, both Roni's write-up and then the ability to learn the Photoshop skills and use her piece to create a message that I could connect with. Okay, the next one is Kathy's beautiful image, which I'll let her speak about. What I connected with then, the Hebrew on the top there, it says revenge. What I connected with, and then we can go to the next piece, was Kathy's write-up, which spoke about what is revenge and what's the right revenge. And her conclusion is that the real revenge is tikkun olam, and if we live our lives in a way to repair the world is the best revenge for the efforts to destroy the world and to destroy Jews. So I worked with Kathy's original image and tried to composite it into other images that I had, or how I might composite it in other things. But then I kept coming back to her words about tikkun olam. And what I decided to do then is break the rules of our re-art and not use Kathy's particular piece, but used her words as my inspiration. And what then I tried to do was say, okay, how do I show in an image tikkun olam? How do I show the repairing of the world in a portrait, which is what I really like to do? So I thought about my friend Peter Gross, whose entire career in life has been devoted to making clean water accessible to people around the world. And so he seemed like the appropriate incarnation of tikkun olam, of repairing the world. And so what I did is I asked Peter to sit for me, or pose for me, stand for me in Cedar Lake at about 6 o'clock in the morning. And what he's holding is 2 jars of clean water, so that to symbolize his efforts to find pure water. And what I then brought in was a teaching that my son, Philip Sherman, had taught me, and it's on the write-up, but I just want to share it because I think it brings this idea of tikkun olam with my idea of what the project is all about. And it goes like this. There is a teaching by the Baal Shem Tov about our reflection in water. It's a teaching about humility. The closer we are to the water, there is no reflection. When we are far away, the reflection is seen. It is the same with another person. When we are far away, we sometimes only see ourselves. But when we are close with someone else, it is as if we become one with them. We can truly see them. And so the image here of Peter being in the water with his shadow, he's getting dirty, he's in the work of tikkun olam, and he's doing good things at the same time. So he's in the water and still seeing others. So for me, the re-art project was about exploring the Jewish topic, figuring out Photoshop, how to make images come together, and then when I could, depend on the good relationships that we have built so that I could break some rules and create an image based on what Kathy said rather than the particular image.
So this is my original, and I call it Mem. When I first understood, or began to understand what this project would involve, I wanted to find something that was really meaningful to me. And in going through my repertoire of slides and all my images, finding the powerful ones that I thought I wanted to share with everybody, water kept coming into my view. I shoot a lot of water, and I didn't realize how much I did until I started working on this project, but so many of my photographs include a water feature of some sort. So I decided that would be my theme, to concentrate on water. And it just was relevant in so many ways because of the water shortage in Israel, because of how powerful water is in our lives. I grew up on water. I grew up in Lake Superior. So it just all made sense to me, and that's why I chose this particular photograph, which I shot in San Francisco. It's actually Seal Rocks, so it's on the very northern western edge of San Francisco. The shape of the rocks then also reminded me, as I was doing some research, of the construction of Hebrew letters. The Hebrew word for water is mayim. As the Hebrew alphabet was being developed and designed, the first way the M sound, or mem, was exactly like that. It was a series of triangles. And so when I saw that, I thought, this is it. This is my master for this project. It just made a lot of sense to me. So, and luckily, when I shot that photograph, that lovely figure on the very bottom was there. I did not plant that person. I have no idea who it is, but I sure was glad that he was there when I was taking this photograph. Just something I wanted to say about learning about the re-art process. So my first thought was one of basic curiosity and questioning the quality of the outcome, given that we all had such different styles to our photography. And photography is so subjective, and our reaction to an image is based on or influenced by personal feelings, tastes, opinions, and different abilities. So after I accepted this challenge, I enjoyed being pushed out of my comfort zone, which is usually of shooting what is in front of me. This time, the re-art process taught me how to dig deeper. So this one is one of my re-arts. It's a Roni's piece, and I call this One Drop Feeds Many Roots. I challenged myself not to use any computer photo editing applications. What a novel idea. I used old-fashioned techniques with a copying machine, acetate film, and real scissors. The results pleased me more than I anticipated. The impact to this whole re-art and experience has been really powerful and wonderful. The experience gave me permission to take chances with new ideas that I had no previous experience with, and pushed me to think beyond my comfort zone. The best outcomes, here I go getting emotional, of being involved with this program are the new friends and partners that I worked with, both here and in Israel, and the opportunity that I have now to return to Israel, where in 1968, I lived and worked on Kibbutz Shahar Golan in the Jordan Valley. I still have friends there, and I'm very excited to be able to visit them in November. Thank you, Robin, Ewan, Jonathan, for making me aware of this P2G program, and for all your hard work in making this come together, to Eilat and the Minneapolis and St. Paul Jewish Federations, and to my fantastic partners, David, Kathy, Pazit, Anat, and Roni, and everyone else involved in making this happen.
Thank you.
Well, my name's Kathy Tobias, just in case you couldn't read. When I was asked to be part of this art collaborative, although flattered, I had to think very hard about it before I made the commitment. Did I have the time to do it? The skills? The vision or inspiration around the theme, Judaism, Art, and Science Interwoven? And what the heck did re-art mean anyway? With limited understanding on what I was fully committing to, I chose to dive in for the experience and opportunity to expand my creative photography skills. Right away, Linda and David and I met several times to get to know each other and explore what the theme meant to each of us. What was re-art? What are the expectations of us? That was extremely helpful to me in getting started. The first challenge was to produce a digital piece reflecting what we wanted to say about the theme. Those are our original creations, from which the other 5 artists would create their own interpretation in a form of re-art. For my original, after much contemplation of what I wanted to say in my work, I came up with several options. I showed this shot to my daughter. This was taken at the Mauthausen concentration camp in Austria, and it shows a small portion of the very large gas chamber that was there. She said to me, "Do you know what the Hebrew says?" I said, "I do not." Clearly, I gave her a better Hebrew education than I had. She said it means revenge. I immediately got chills. I knew this photograph echoed with what I wanted to say. As I continued to contemplate the theme, it resonated with me how interwoven or separately Judaism, art, and science can be used to make the world better or worse, to heal or to harm, to repair or to destroy, and so on. The heart of my faith and life choices that guide me are rooted in the Jewish value of tikkun olam, my personal responsibility to participate in repairing and restoring the world. How do I reconcile revenge, inflicting hurt or harm, with my Jewish value of repair? Maybe repair is the best revenge. Maybe the best revenge, after all, is a life well lived and a life where Judaism and Jews now survive and thrive in the world. I chose to thread throughout all of my 6 created pieces the theme of tikkun olam. You will see that in my descriptions and titles of each of my artworks. This one is called Repair, then it's Resilience, Rising, Renewal, Resistance, and Restore. Each artwork took a significant amount of time, thought, and reflection, again, to represent what I wanted to say and how do I do that? A year ago or so, I completed a photography certificate through the Ringling College of Art and Design. Over those years of study, most of my classes involved creating work in Photoshop. I really hadn't integrated much of Photoshop into my photography work yet, and it's complicated. Now, here was my opportunity to dream and envision outside my typical photographic box and do some new creations. So I'm going to briefly review my process on one of my pieces. Of course, I wanted to do all of them, but I know we don't have time. This picture is entitled Restore, a Sea of Humanity. When I was recently on a tour in Eastern Europe with my rabbi, I was deeply disturbed and moved by the enormous absence I felt of the once large and vibrant Jewish community there. I was at an exhibit at the Jewish Museum in Berlin that had these 10,000 metal screaming faces piled on the floor. As I walked on them, which you were supposed to do, the metal faces clanged loudly and echoed with a disturbing sound in the high ceilings of the room, filling the void with an eeriness. Stepping on them, I felt a peculiar sense of walking on an open sea of discarded people. From Linda's original piece that I used to re-art this, I chose to use only the man and his shadow, which I lifted out of her photograph. And then I chose one of my photographs of a sunset at the ocean that was meaningful to me for the background. And I used various Photoshop filters as I was working with this, and partly on the faces to give them more texture and color, and to create an effect I wanted with an enchanting sense of the people or their faces washing out to the sea to be forgotten. The man in his shadow, if you can see down there, also standing in the shadows, is contemplating the horrors of our history as he pales in the scale of the enormity of these events. Again, I find myself asking, how do we repair? What will it take to restore? How do we prevent repeating the dark sides of history and learn how to respect and preserve the sanctity of all humanity? While my process and technique varied for each of my pieces, I did run this theme through all of them, while combining what I perceived the other artists were conveying in their works. I enjoyed the challenge of this collaborative project. I feel I pushed myself to create new works that were beyond my typical photographic expertise. I also enjoyed meeting new people in my community and working with them. I think I have made some new lifelong friends. In May, the 3 artists from our sister city, Rehovot, spent a week here in the Twin Cities, and it was a blast. Now I'm looking forward to seeing them in a couple of months when we go to visit them in Rehovot. And I want to thank you all for coming out on a rainy day to see our work and listen to our presentations.
Hey. Well, I have a few questions for you. I've been intrigued with your process, which is a little different than what we did as the alumni artists. And, beginning is always hard. And I was thinking about, you had 2 different approaches. Your first piece, you had to find an idea that spoke to you and develop it. And the other ones, you're reacting to someone else's idea, but filtering it through yours. And I'm curious if you found one easier than the other.
I don't know if I found it different. Once I had established my ideas and found my master photograph that I felt expressed and related to me and my ideas, it was an exciting challenge to then accept the other pieces and look at them, study them, and get something to work on from them. So I just found it really exciting to do, not something that I dreaded. It took a while for the ideas sometimes to come, to figure out the technical pieces and what I wanted to convey, but once I got a glimmer of an idea, then it was easier to pull it together, and I thought it was just a really fun experience.
I would say, in what I just spoke about also, I think the first original piece that we created was probably the most thought-provoking. And as I said, I threaded it through all that I did in the project. But I was also thinking about something that Brenda said. She's a staff person in Rehovot on this project. And when we met together after I think it was our first re-art, she said, from working on the project last year, that she found the ones most striking that were most striking that were very different from the original. So after I did my first re-art, it really gave me permission to think outside the box, to really think creatively. And so I would say with each one, the process was not easy, but the exercise was worthwhile.
Going into it, I had wanted to create everything in camera. My Photoshop skills are not great, so I thought, going into this re-art, how am I going to take 5 pieces and treat them 5 different ways to create different looking images, and still in the end, as Kathy spoke, to have a cohesive set of images. And I had hoped going into it that I would end up with 6 images that had some sort of a theme or work together just as those six. So that was my mindset going in. As the process went on, I think I enjoyed the idea of learning the tools in order to make images work together to have a new message. And so in the end, I enjoyed that and I liked that as well.
I'm curious if you encountered any challenges working cross-culturally. Any learnings? Certainly probably more Hebrew than you maybe started out with.
Well, we used English. English was the language of conversation. So I think the Israelis might answer this question differently than us. There were some things in the write-ups of the Israeli artists that I looked at and had to kind of think, oh, so what exactly does she mean? But it was not substantial. I think that everyone's Pazit and Anat and Roni, their English is really good and communicated quite well, and we were able to understand where they were coming from and what they were saying, both in word and in image.
It sounded like you had some communications beforehand about the meaning of your other partner's work. How did that process work? How did you learn about that?
I think you're referring to before right in the beginning, yeah, because I just talked about it. You know, after I committed to doing this, there was a bit of terror internally, like, what does this all mean and how do we do this? So the three of us met several times on FaceTime, and it was super helpful to get some clarity. And we each talked about what the theme meant to us, and it really gave some momentum for me and getting to know him, so it was really important.
So when you developed, when each person developed their work, did they then talk with the other people about the meaning of it? I guess that's what I'm...
Eventually, we had a Zoom call after each re-art, and if any of you know what Zoom is, but it was like a video conference call. So we all got together, the 6 artists and some of the staff, and then we would discuss the meaning of each of our pieces.
And we have the final one this coming Sunday.
Okay, so still going.
And I think we also had some informal sharing between the three of us, sharing pieces, sharing ideas. Does this make sense to you? Does that make sense to you? So we encouraged and helped each other informally as well.
Okay. I wanted to see if we have any questions from our audience. Anybody dying to ask a question?
Let's go and see
Oh. I was trying to think how I'm going to repeat your question. So your question is about using the communication channels to create collaboration, but you also commented on Photoshop to scissors and the range of different ways to use re-arting, some of the more traditional ones that you heard about, as well as Photoshop. But if you want to address...
Well, it's really a great question about how we did our re-arts. And for instance, where I came from going into it, once people use Photoshop on an image, it's no longer a photograph. It's something else. That's where I started. But the impact of the Zoom calls, the thing that we talked about the most was the techniques that each other used to create their piece. And so I think from our first re-art to our last re-art, you'll see a lot of differences. People were reprinting the image, cutting it, burning it, let it blow in the wind, capturing that process, doing the whole thing in Photoshop, doing none of it in Photoshop. So for one of my re-arts, then I had the idea, I printed the piece and folded it and put candles on it and photographed that. I know that my image, one of the Israeli artists blew up the image life-size and then had someone dance around it and photographed that. So it was the technology of the call, of bringing us close, really enabled us to understand the different techniques and what each other was thinking about in how we took each other's art and re-arted it.
Very good. Well, I want to thank David and Linda and Kathy, and I want to make sure to tell you we have a website which has this work on it, so if you found it difficult standing there and reading everything, if you're like me, you read everything on the wall, you can read it on a website. It is p2gx.com. And you will find the artwork, images, information on the artists, and a little bit about the work that they did. So I encourage you to check that out. Thank you.
Before everyone stands up, I just want to do one more round of applause to our amazing artist and moderator this evening. It's been such a pleasure getting to watch this process through my lens, through your lens, and being here tonight to see sort of the culmination of all of these months of work and challenges and aha moments and beautiful synergy. So for me, it's been such an honor to be where I am and watch this process evolve. So thank you for that, for what I've gotten to experience through your encounters together. I just also wanted to acknowledge our P2G alums who were a part of this project last year, who also participated in the exhibition. So make sure to check that out when you view the gallery again later. A little shout out to Eilat, who was up here earlier doing opening remarks, for all the work you've put into this. And to Meryl, I know we've already acknowledged you, but your words really have guided this project. So thank you for all of the inspiration. I wanted to thank all of our community partners, and I also wanted to thank all of you for being here this evening, for listening and sharing and supporting. We all need each other, and being together is always a really special opportunity. So let's continue chatting in the gallery, and thank you all again. Have a good night.